Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
Which incident makes you sick to your stomach?
Experience 1. I woke up from an evening nap to the sounds of screaming. At first, I thought it was my roommates playing a video game, but soon realized it was coming from my open window. It was just one person screaming, over and over again. Turns out, our next-door neighbor killed herself. It was her cousin screaming after finding her body. Those gut-wrenching screams still ring in my ears when I think about that night. Experience 2. A young woman in my neighborhood was brutally murdered by her boyfriend. It was true crime level bad. He strangled her and stabbed her repeatedly, dragging her all around the house, and then violated her while she was dying. Her brothers found her body. The murderer's best alibi was that he was dealing drugs at the time. Experience 3. Sylvia Marie Likens, January 3, 1949 to October 26, 1965, was an American teenager who was tortured and murdered by her caregiver, Gertrude Banaszewski, many of Banaszewski's children, and several of their neighborhood friends. This abuse incrementally lasted for 3 months before Likens died from her extensive injuries and malnourishment on October 26, 1965, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Likens was increasingly neglected, belittled, sexually humiliated, beaten, starved, lacerated, burned, and dehydrated by her tormentors. Her autopsy showed 150 wounds across her body, including several burns, scald marks, and eroded skin. Through intimidation, her younger sister, Jenny, was occasionally forced to participate in her mistreatment. The official cause of her death was determined to be a homicide caused by a combination of subdural hematoma and shock, complicated by severe malnutrition. Experience 4. One of my very close friends was a recovering addict, fent, heroin, meth, and the night she relapsed due in part to her unbearable tooth pain, she was with some screwed-up people who thought she overdosed and died. Fearing they would be to blame for her death, they locked the door on the way out of her RV and set it on fire. By the time anyone realized it was on fire, it was too late. The coroner said she, in fact, was burned alive due to the smoke that was in her lungs. Experience 5. The Fritzl case, where Joseph Fritzl held his daughter Elizabeth, who had just turned 18 at the time, captive in a basement prison for 24 years so he could essay her after telling her mother she ran away. She gave birth to 7 kids alone down there, one of which died while 3 stayed imprisoned with her in the basement and 3 he took upstairs to claim his missing daughter had left the babies on his doorstep so he and his wife could raise them. Easily the most screwed up and horrifying case I'd ever seen, and I watch and listen to a lot of true crime. I'm also horrified that his life imprisonment term includes that he can be paroled after 15 years, which means he could be eligible for parole this year. Experience 6. I was up late at night with my infant baby and heard moans coming from the apt next door. I thought it was someone getting busy and ignored it. The next night I heard it louder, and then a few hours later heard it again and could make out someone saying help. It was like 4 a.m. and everyone in my house was asleep, so I texted 911. Eventually, FDNY and EMS came and broke into the apt and found an old lady who had fallen in the shower and couldn't get up. She was there for 3 days, it turned out, and was surviving by drinking water from the tub. She lived and was moved to an assisted living home, but I still can hear those screams and feel so bad that I ignored it the first night. Experience 7. I was around 13 years old. Was swimming in the pool with my buddy and heard my neighbor scream. We got out and went to him. He was using an electric skill saw. We did not know that he was being electrocuted. My friend reached down and touched him and started being electrocuted also. I ran to the plug and unplugged the saw. By this time his wife walked out and was screaming. I went a few houses down and got our nurse neighbor. She and I gave them CPR. The entire time the wife is screaming. We were doing chest compressions and breathing for them. I watched as my neighbor foamed at the mouth, turned purple, and died in front of me. My friends survived. At 13 years old, I dealt with trauma for a long time. I didn't go to the funeral, as I was so disturbed. Grown people made fun of me and criticized me for not going. People thought I was just some hateful, cold-hearted kid. My mother understood what I was dealing with. At 13, I watched my neighbor's wife hold their 2-year-old and scream while I tried to save her husband. I still see this vividly, and to this day, I remember everything about this. I still reach out to his family and let them know that I haven't forgotten him. They need to know this. People need to know that their loved ones are remembered. The same people who criticized me for not going to the funeral have long forgotten him. Experience 8. When I was in college, a student went missing. Her remains were found not too long after. She had an argument with her boyfriend and broke up with him. He got angry at her, murdered her, and tried to get rid of the evidence by chopping her up and burning her on his barbecue grill.
Do you like listening to these stories? Do you want to hear more of them? Then click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And check the description for links to more videos and interesting stories.
Experience 9. I'm Syrian, so let me mention a few that I was near. Google Al-Tadamon massacre. This was done by the Syrian Military Intelligence Service. People were blindfolded and told they were taken to safety, just to be shot by those who guided them and buried in groups. Another is the Adra massacre. This was done by the opposing Islamic forces, who they invaded a city and burned people alive in the city's bakery. I heard of someone who committed self-deletion, killing his wife and little girl to not be tortured when they entered his home using a hand grenade. He was an officer in the army, killing a few of the terrorists too. Those who did both massacres are still alive and involved in the war on both sides. Experience 10. I got a call while leaving work that I needed to get home ASAP due to an emergency that was occurring at my house. My fiancée had drowned in the pool while swimming with her kids. The police or EMTs put the kids in my house and tried to revive her. They didn't know that the entire backside of my house had windows facing the pool, so the kids basically were alone and watched them trying to save her life. When I walked into the house, I saw them crying and staring at their dead mother's body, and all they really kept saying was, "If they push on her chest harder, will we get a good ending?" I put them in a different room, went to the bathroom, and threw up. Then I went back to them and just held them and tried to slowly communicate that no, we were not going to be getting a good ending. Broke my heart in so many ways. Experience 11. Marco Muzzo is a spoiled rich douchebag who got drunk one day and decided to drive home, speeding down residential areas. Well, he ran a red light and plowed into a minivan which had 2 grandparents and 3 grandchildren. The 9-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 2-year-old, and the grandfather all died. Marco Kuntwad Muzzo got 10 years and a suspended license. He was moved to a special facility for good behavior after 4 years. 2 years later, he's out on full parole. So that's it, folks. If you're rich, you can just murder an entire family and barely get in trouble for it. Oh, did I forget to mention that the children's father killed himself from grief the day after Father's Day? Poopstain literally freaking killed a woman's entire family because he was a stupid, dumb but drunk driving moron, and he basically gets a slap on the wrist. I freaking hate him and the entire justice system. Experience 12. All of Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes, but specifically Konraksson the Sumphone. Just thinking about how that poor baby got away and the police just returned him to Dahmer and laughed about it afterwards makes me so upset and my stomach turns. He could have gone home, but the police served him to Dahmer on a silver platter. Experience 13. My father is a convicted minor attracted person. He assaulted my older brother before I was born. It makes me sick that I spent years thinking of this man as my father, only to have everything change one day as the allegations and evidence came to light. I went from caring about my father to fantasizing about his death and what I would do to him if I were to ever see him again. Experience 14. The Hi-Fi Murders. The wiki page goes into way too much detail. The part that sticks with me and makes me sick to my stomach is afterwards, he allowed her to use the bathroom while he watched, then dragged her, still naked, back to the other hostages, threw her on her face, and fatally shot her in the back of the head. According to Oren's testimony, her last words were, "I am too young to die so horrible." Oren outplayed the crap out of the robbers but had to witness 4x murders including his son, as well as the R-word of an 18-year-old girl. He survived, but probably was never the same again, by a long shot. Experience 15. It wasn't nearly as bad as most of the comments here. I was responding to a nursing home. I was a paramedic, because of a ripped-out urinary catheter on an old man living there. We came to this place and the nurse was extremely disinterested and only showed me where his room was. As I came into his room, he was alone and lying naked in his blood, I think 350 to 500 milliliters blood loss, on his mattress on the floor. My colleague rushed to the nurse and got her to the room to ask what the actual hell is going on here. She responded only like,
"I didn't want the blood to drip on the bed, so she doesn't need to clean it, and he was naked because it's not necessary, he had dementia and can't remember it anyway."
I was honestly shocked and noted her name in the protocol. We quickly got the man on our stretcher, packed him in with 2 to 3 blankets, got him in our ambulance and made our examinations, or diagnostics, as my English is not too good, and then rushed him to the next hospital. Luckily, we got a very nice, motivated and young doctor in the hospital. We explained the whole situation and she was extremely pissed off, not because of us, obviously, and shocked, so she called the police and the family of the man. He was treated in hospital and got quickly better, and as I heard from the doctor a couple of weeks later, he got into another nursing home afterwards. This whole case got to court because this nurse hurt his right to dignity. I didn't know how this thing ended. I didn't see her again in this nursing home, but after this incident, I literally went to the toilets and threw up. Blood wounds, broken bones, ripped of legs, everything no problem for me. But people who built up our country after World War and worked of their butts for a pretty nice living treated like crap? Nope, there's my psychological border because it was disgusting for me.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.